Hi there. Thanks for joining me for this episode of Lights Out, your virtual campfire. I'm your hostess with the mostest ghosties, Sylvia Shults. Whenever I visit a town that's new to me, I like to see what the place has in the way of ghost tours. I visited Galena, Illinois, knowing of its reputation for paranormal activity. Come along with me as we explore a bit of the ghost lore of this pretty little town and go lights out. Galena is located in the northeastern corner of the state. It's a gorgeous town with a real old-fashioned feel to it. It's built on a bluff of the Mississippi River, so the whole town is kind of terraced. There are a few places where, in order to get from one street to another, you have to actually walk down a flight of steps, but that just adds to the funky charm of the place. Galena is well known as the former residence of President Ulysses S. Grant. Grant and his family moved to Galena in 1860, renting a modest brick house there for $100 a year. Grant had retired 6 years earlier after a 15-year career in the military. Not having much success in the civilian sector, Grant planned to work at a leather shop in Galena that was owned by his father and managed by his two younger brothers. Between 1861 and 1865, Grant, for obvious reasons, spent his time away from Galena. But after Lee's surrender at Appomattox in April 1865, Grant was free to return home. On August 18, 1865, Grant and his wife Julia were welcomed back to Galena with a parade befitting a war hero. Plus, the town gave the couple a little something extra. They gifted the Grants a fully furnished house. Julia Grant later recalled, "There was a tremendous and enthusiastic outpouring of people to welcome him. After a glorious triumphal ride around the hills and valleys, so brilliant with smiles and flowers, we were conducted to a lovely villa exquisitely furnished with everything good taste could desire." About a mile from Grant's house, you can find the Galena and U.S. Grant Museum, located at 211 Bench Street. This is another former mansion. It was built in 1858 by David Barrows. The city of Galena acquired the property in 1938. City Hall moved into the front 2 rooms of the first floor, and a new museum took up the rest of the building. In 1967, the city moved out, and the entire house became a museum. Paranormal activity seemed to begin in the spring of 1989. One of the most memorable occurrences happened in January 1991, during a reception at the museum. A server was circulating around the room with a tray of glasses filled with champagne. Suddenly, the tray was flung from the server's hands. The mess was cleaned up, and nobody paid much attention to the mishap. But 10 minutes later, another server noticed the full glasses on her tray beginning to tremble. Before she could react, her tray crashed to the floor as well. These were servers with years of experience, so there was no reason for such embarrassing mistakes. A little while later, Doug, a museum employee, was standing in the gift shop. A tray holding 8 or 10 champagne glasses was sitting alone on a counter, waiting to be carried out to the guests. As Doug watched, the glasses began to shake, and before anyone could rush over to save the drinks, over half the glasses toppled off the tray onto the counter. A few minutes after that, 3 servers were standing in a line in the hallway, trays of champagne glasses at the ready, waiting for the last group of guests to arrive. Suddenly, despite one server holding her tray rock steady, the glasses on that tray started to vibrate, and once more, over half a tray's worth of champagne ended up on the floor. Another haunted place featured on ghost tours is the Ryan Mansion. This Victorian home was built in the 1880s and is considered one of the most haunted homes in Galena. It went on the market a few years ago and was, understandably, quite difficult to sell. This could have been due to the fact that the real estate agents tasked with selling the house kept seeing shadowy figures dressed in Victorian clothing in the mirrors, which kind of put a damper on their enthusiasm for showing the house. The Ryan mansion did eventually sell, though. The family that now lives there has learned to live with their resident spirits. The living occupants of the house have graciously made the main parlor of the Ryan mansion available as part of Amelia's Galena Ghost Tours. This is the room which is most paranormally active. A former owner, Mrs. Ryan, passed away in the bedroom directly above, and her wake was held in the parlor. The DeSoto House, still a working hotel, is also haunted. The hotel has hosted such guests as Mark Twain and Abraham Lincoln, but their most famous resident is the Lady in Black. For years, employees reported seeing the apparition of a woman dressed in period clothing who came down the stairs to the basement and then walked through a wall. The mystery of this recurring behavior was solved in 2011. Galena, built in a valley right next to the Mississippi River, is extremely prone to flooding. In 2011, the flood destroyed the drywall in the basement of the DeSoto House. Workers ripped out the damaged drywall and revealed a brick wall with a doorway in the exact place where the Lady in Black habitually walked through the wall. Happily for historians and ghost hunters alike, the management of the hotel decided not to replace the drywall. Instead, they installed plexiglass over the former doorway and added a plaque above the hole with the story of the Lady in Black. With all this amazing activity, I knew I had to explore Galena's haunted side. The paranormal activity spills out into the countryside around the town, too. There are Indian burial grounds there, as well as the site of the Joe Davies County Poor Farm. With my passion for poorhouses, I really wanted to find this last place. Unfortunately, the ruins of the abandoned building have pretty much returned to the landscape, and I was not able to find the poor farm. With a couple of ghost tours available, I knew I had a choice to make. I went with All About a Ghost Tours, led by Steve Repp. Steve is my kind of ghost tour guide. He is passionate about telling his groups about the history of Galena, as well as the ghost tales. Steve also helps run the Historic Archives Room at the public library. The day had been bright and sunny, but as the evening wore on, a cool drizzle moved into the area, giving the perfect ambiance for a walking ghost tour, while not making our walk too miserable. We met for the tour at the DeSoto House Hotel lobby, then headed out into the chilly evening. Steve's tour meandered through downtown Galena, taking in such sights as 111 Main, a restaurant just down the street from the hotel, and Turner Hall, a social gathering place for the citizens of Galena for over 125 years. Turner Hall is said to be haunted by the spirit of Charles Shears, a former business manager of the hall and three-time mayor of Galena. In March 1910, while serving his third term as mayor, he was struck down by a heart attack right outside Turner Hall. He was carried inside the building, where he passed away. Some say he is still there, watching over the building that was such a huge part of his life. Our group stopped for a while at 111 Main. The building that now houses the upscale restaurant formerly served as Galena's first funeral home, so it has quite a lot of spectral activity. Steve shared several stories with us as we sat in one of the upper floor rooms of the restaurant, a cavernous space with rustic brick walls.
Okay, now there are certain things that give you reminders of the past. See the difference in the brick? Those are probably 2 windows or openings. I would assume windows, at one time. Even over there, between the pitchforks, you can see the difference in the brick and almost like an arch look at the top. Probably a doorway at one time. But anyway, Jack Coulter, who has the Irish Cottage over on the east side, bought this building a number of years ago. Okay, and he wanted to know some of the research. So I did some for him. That one frame piece is one of there's a number of those around here, different ads and things I found for him. And basically, he was going to have his restaurant and dining and then a bar, and then this area here was going to be his apartment. He said, I'm going to fix it up into an apartment. I put the skylights in there, My wife and I, he goes, we're going to live here. They have 2 children. The bedrooms would be in the next room. We'll go in that in a little bit. And this was it. Everything was perfect. Look at the size you'd have, all the room. And then it happened. I go, then what happened? He said, well, in the early days when they first opened business, we stored a lot of stuff up here. Okay? And occasionally my wife would come up here to get something that we needed, And where we met those young ladies downstairs at that little front desk there, that's where Jack was standing on this certain occasion that his wife came up to get something up here. And when she was up here, she let out a scream. Jack and another worker run up the stairs, assuming something bad happened. Maybe she fell or hurt herself, And she was over here, right about where you are, trembling, because she said she saw a ghost-like figure of a lady petting a pigeon over here. Sounds odd, doesn't it? But see, the windows were probably open because they were doing a lot of restoration work, to get some air in. Pigeons probably flew in. So his wife said, I saw this ghost-like figure of an older lady bent over petting this pigeon. So Jack said, when we came up here, we saw the pigeon roaming around, then it took off, but we didn't see any ghost-like figure. But to make a long story short, his wife said, you think I'm living up there? There is no way I'm living up there. I don't ever want to see that again. And so that took care of that. So what they use it for now is they might have large parties or gatherings, maybe a reception from a wedding. They need larger rooms, things like that. So it's an interesting place. I'd bring people up here, okay? And I would tell them some of the stories, like what I'm telling you here. And I would tell people to take photographs, take some pictures. So they'd be taking pictures. Oh, that's kind of neat to take a picture. So anyway, at that time, I wore a long frock coat. It's kind of like a suit coat, but it goes to about to my knees. It's from the late 1800s, okay? So I wear this frock coat. I got a white shirt and a tie on and, kind of duded up, And this one lady takes this picture of me. And she goes, Steve, whoa, look at this. And my only regret is that during the rest of the tour, I just lost track of her. People had asked questions or they tell an experience, and she got away from me before I could, at the end of the tour, she got away. And I wanted to get a copy because, just so people could see it, but it's gone now. But what it was, she said, whoa, look at this. You know what orbs are? Balls of light. I had about 30 of them all over me. I mean, I'm just spotted with them. Wherever, arms, chest, stomach, up, wherever that coat was, there were these little orbs. No exaggeration, at least 30 of them. I didn't feel anything. But the fact of the matter is, now, these were flashes going off from people taking some pictures. Why weren't there a couple around me at least? Little flash, Why were they all on me? So then somebody told me later, it's the coat. You said that coat goes back to the 1800s. It's that coat.
So it was an original, not a reproduction?
Yeah. So maybe I should start wearing that again, and come back up and see what happens, So anyway, that was interesting. So the funeral director here in town had been in the business over 50 years. Mr. Furlong, he was a very nice guy and a memory like you wouldn't believe. And of course, being in the funeral business all those years, think of all the tragic situations. He had, accidents, young people involved, just certain things that maybe even people he knew. So anyway, I got thinking. I work at the library. I tell the stories I tell you this evening. I truly believe happened. I don't make anything up. So anyway, I got thinking, hey, what a perfect person to ask. A guy who's been in the business over 50 years. He has his business here, a funeral home here in this location. Okay, so I said, Mr. Furlong, you know me, and you know I work at the library and stuff, and I deal with factual stuff. I want to ask you something. Have you ever seen a ghost-like figure, in your line of business? And he answered me right away. He said, well, if you want to know if I ever saw a ghost, it never happened. But then he started to hesitate. There were a couple of times when that's how he was doing it, when I couldn't think of the words. I go, felt a presence? Yeah, that's it. Felt a presence. Not like this, but like there was something there. A couple of times. Funeral director, over 50 years. Makes you wonder. To me, that's kind of interesting. He felt a presence. Just a few times. But it makes you wonder. So anyway, it's an interesting place. If you like, let's get up and walk over there. If you want to walk around in here, we can do that too. Then we'll head out into the rain. You got to turn all over. Because you never know what you might see. Anyone play the piano? Do you?
No.
Oh, okay. We have one over here waiting. Come take a look at it. It hasn't started to play by itself yet. Do you play the piano?
I do not.
Oh, I was hoping you would. I figured you probably knew. Just looking at you, I thought you maybe knew at least 10 instruments.
Well, thank you. I grew up in a very musical family, but I do not play myself.
Okay. So this is the stage that Jim Bose. It's a very nice piano.
That is very nice.
One time I had a group of people, about 12, 15 people, and the piano was over there, right near that doorway. So I said, anyone play the piano in this group? And this boy, about 10 years old, goes, I do. I go, really? Would you like to play it? You should have heard him play that piano. Holy mackerel. He's just playing away, and he got a big applause at the end.
Nice.
But these would have been the bedrooms. He was going to make these in the bedrooms, but his wife said, there ain't no way I'm living up here. I don't ever want to see that again. But I don't know if she's working tonight. They might be busy with the reception, but there's a girl that's working at the DeSoto Hotel that worked here. And she says, Steve, I could just tell you tons of stories about this place. He said, the bathrooms, there's some bathrooms over here. He said, toilet paper, you'd go in there and toilet paper would be stretched out all over the floor. The toilet would flush for no one in there. We hear a toilet flush, and there's no one up here, is there? So we look in there, there's nobody. Just certain lights, that you knew you had on were off. Well, you heard two of the employees. They didn't say that just for the effect. They really have, this is a spooky place. I was in here with a paranormal team. And what happened is, we came in here. I'd never been on a paranormal investigation. Have any of you?
Oh, yeah.
I know you have. So what happened is we go on this investigation here. So he said, when you get done with your tour, come knock on the front door. We'll let you in. Now, what they do on these things, they want it very quiet and still. Things are closed, dimly lit. We were on the second floor, okay? And what happened is, he said, I followed these guys around for about 2.5 hours, and they had all the different monitoring equipment. Finally, they said, Steve, we're about ready to wrap it up. Do you want to stay with us and see how we close everything down? I said, sure. I've been here with it this long. And then we can check on the coins. I go, check on what coins? Oh, you probably didn't notice it with the darkness, but wherever there was a table set, let's say if we had a camera on that table pointing in this direction, we put a coin about 12 inches away from the recording device, whether it was audio or video. I go, really, what was the coin for? He said, well, at some locations when we go back to check on things or to gather the equipment, the coin is gone, where it's put at the edge of the table. And I said, you got to be kidding. I didn't mean to be sarcastic, but he said, no, I'm not kidding you. So he had this monitoring device in one hand and this pen-like flashlight in his other hand. So he says, come here. So we go into this room and he shines the light on the table. You see that camera? And I go, I sure do. See the coin? Sure enough, there's a coin about 12 inches away. Okay, come here. We go into the other room. Does the same thing. Then we go into this other room. And he shines the light. He goes, it's gone. And he goes, you see a coin there? And I said, no. So he shines the light all over. We're looking. Couldn't see the coin. Sometimes it's even put under a plate if the table's set or in a glass. And I said, man, where'd that coin go? And he said, well, believe it or not, sometimes there's a presence, a spirit energy that either takes that coin or moves it. And I hated to not be serious about it, but I said, you got to be kidding. And no sooner did I say that, bing! I could hear a metallic sound maybe from here to that middle of that wall over there. And I said, man, did you hear that? That's like a coin falling over there. And there was no one around. There was nothing there. It was just like this. There was not like a table that had just vibrated off. There wasn't a ledge that had vibrated off. It was just him and me up here, you know. And I said, man, so he's shining his light. And I said, hey, is that it right there? So he picks it up, and it's a quarter. And he said, wherever we go, we leave these coins. Now, we mark them in a different way. We take a black felt marker and maybe put a black marker through the date or an X on the back of the coin. And here's our mark for this investigation. I said, well, how do you explain that? We're standing over there and this coin just drops over here. The spirit energy made its presence known to us. And I said, man. So anyway, but one thing I do remember, before that, just a split second before that coin dropped, I don't know how the newer TVs are, but some of the TVs you get close to the screen, there's a little static feel to it. That's what I felt. Like as fast as you could blink your eyes, I could feel that static. Bing! And then the coin fell. It was like the energy was passing right in front of me. But it was a very unusual experience. But believe me, if you were up here, I told Jack, I said, what you ought to do is get people up here at night. Get it like a dozen people, see if they'll spend the night, you know. He said, I'd like to, but the liability would probably put out of this world. You know, if somebody got hurt at 3:30 in the morning, they got to call a rescue squad in here. If it weren't for that, I'd love to do it. But it's a spooky place, believe me. When I was walking through with those guys, there was just, it was very dimly lit. There was just something about this place, like there was some energy here. So it makes you wonder. Well, you heard some of the employees.
Creepy, they want to go up and down in the elevator. Should we take the elevator down?
Yeah, the airlock thing will get stuck.
After our cozy round of ghost stories at 111 Main, we headed back to the DeSoto House Hotel. We sat in one of the basement reception rooms, right by the Lady in Black's doorway, and traded more spooky tales. We just didn't want the evening to end. Eventually, we all went our separate ways. I headed off to my hotel in Dubuque, Iowa, only about 20 minutes away at that point. I had an interesting experience there. I'll share it with you all next time we go lights out.